The Austrians, pretty much, which is the Austrian Empire's forces, supported by the duchies of Saxony, Bavaria, and Swabia, are going to be facing them. Now, the two armies on the Rhine are aimed at being the primary thrust. So they are going to get the bulk of the reinforcements, the bulk of the money, supplies, ammunitions, food, and whatever support. So Moreau wants 20,000 new soldiers. The Directory will do its utmost to give it to him. The third assault is going to be where our story takes place, which was in Italy. However, the Italian front is seen as nothing but a diversion and sideshow, and the army's in a poor state, which we'll get to it when we arrive at the theater. Now, ultimately, just a brief thing on the Rhine campaign is it becomes an indecisive battleground. So while the over the entire year of 1796, there are almost 30 battles, which there were two draws which kind of were more closer to Austrian victories, and almost 12 other Austrian victories to 16 French victories. And most of the French victories actually happened very early into the campaign, which is around June and July. And these are smaller engagements. And when Archduke Charles, brother of the Austrian emperor, takes command, we do see that pretty much the French forces are on the retreat, which is they stabilize the entire front. Now, the Italian theater is where our star of the show will take command, Napoleon Bonaparte. But maybe before we do that, Greg, maybe you can give a bit about Napoleon's early history,
Of
like
course.
before he takes command.
So for those who are actually been watching a lot of the episodes that have been coming out on our channel, something that we've kind of adapted to, like let's say, for example, when I was covering the Dutch naval war against Japan, is to have the other guy kind of look into, the military history behind some of the figures we're talking about, because, we name and list a lot of different people. And I mean, the general audience probably has no idea who we're talking about. I think in this case, Napoleon Bonaparte, people have a general idea, but I tried to find a lot of information on him prior to the battle in question. So I don't want to actually talk about, the Second Coalitionary War and everything that happens afterwards, like after 1800.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who don't know, Napoleon Bonaparte, he was born August 15th of 1769, not in France. He was actually in Corsica. He is not actually French born, nor did he speak French as his first language, by the way. And of course, he's one of the greatest military leaders of history. I would argue he probably is the greatest military leader, given a lot of reasons, but I won't get into it. His military journey actually began at the Royal Military Academy in Brienne, later in the École Militaire en Paris, where he graduated in 1785 as a second lieutenant of artillery. This guy is a bona fide artilleryman. His Corsican heritage initially created friction within the predominantly French officer corps, but Napoleon's determination and his intelligence allowed him to rise quite quickly. Now, obviously, he lived during the French Revolution, and this provided opportunities for an ambitious officer like him. The upheaval led to the restructuring of the French military and the dismissal of many aristocratic officers, creating openings for talented individuals. Napoleon, his early success came during the Siege of Toulon in 1793. The city had been seized by the Royalist forces and handed over to the British. Napoleon's strategic placement of artillery batteries forced the British fleet to retreat, securing a Republican victory, and this success earned him a promotion to brigadier general at the age of just 24. By 1795, Napoleon played a crucial role in quelling the royalist uprisings in Paris, known as the 13 Vendémiaires. Using his artillery expertise, he dispersed the insurgents with a decisive whiff of grape shot, kind of something that he's known for, actually, solidifying his reputation as a bold and effective commander. This victory brought him to the attention of the French Directory, the ruling government at the time. Napoleon's next significant campaign began in 1796 when he was appointed commander of the French army of Italy. At just 26 years old, he inherited a poorly equipped and demoralized force, but despite these challenges, he demonstrated exceptional leadership, tactical ingenuity, and the ability to inspire his troops. In a series of stunning victories, he defeated the Austrian and Piedmontese forces, culminating in the Treaty of Campo Formino in 1797. That's what we're going to be getting up to, actually. But the campaign established Napoleon as a military genius and a master of maneuver warfare, using speed, surprise, and flexibility to outwit his numerically superior foes. And I don't want to get into any of the key battles, but yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of the man. The man in question was brilliant by all measures, particularly with artillery, and he revolutionized warfare multiple times. Actually, later in history, more so, I'd say. But anyways, I desist. I guess we could get on with the story.
True enough, and thanks for pointing out like he's gonna be known for not only the artillery but maneuver. So
Oh, one
I
last
think,
thing, just because I know the
yeah.
audience, m the myth about his shortness. Just so the audience knows this, and I only loosely understand what happened. Napoleon was of average height, but the British had basically created, what was it, a propaganda about his height, and it had something to do not with his physical height, but something else. Do you know the story behind this by any chance, Gareth?
For me, actually, what I've read is I think the French had a slightly different standard of measurement.
Oh, okay.
So if it were in our standard, scale, right? Napoleon would be about 5'6" ish, 5'7" types.
Okay.
But I think on the French scale, it was 5'2".
And I think the British referred to him as the short commander, but it wasn't, I forget why. It wasn't about his height. It was something else having to do with
I
him.
just know the misconception of this height is the difference in the systems, which
Okay.
is why the British just decided to use that 5'2" just to make him,
Yeah.
just a way to slander him
Just I had to
with
bring it
British
up because
cartoons.
I had to bring it up
Yeah,
because I know the
but
general audience, like that's one of the few things most people would say about
well,
Napoleon is his height. So.
well, if it's anything, Attila the Hun was way shorter than Napoleon.
All right.
Anyways, I think, as you mentioned, he puts on the royalist uprising on 13 Vendémiaire, saving the because he's the only real general in Paris available. Granted future directory and political ally, Paul Barras is in command. That guy's a politician, doesn't know anything about military. Napoleon does a tremendous job, which is why he's given the command of the army of Italy. And he's not really liked by the senior commanders when he takes over.